Good morning and welcome to another edition of From Beyond Champaign. Illinois wins at home against Ohio State 87-79. It was a sweat. It was a thriller. It was a definition of the season. And if you want to define the season as a roller coaster, that's what this game was. I'm going to talk all about it. I know it's Monday morning, was unable to come on here and talk about it as soon as the game ended yesterday. Just a lot going on here at home this weekend, so just didn't really have the time to come on here and do it. But I definitely sat here and watched it and went through the roller coaster of emotions that was watching this game. So we're going to talk about it right here, right now on a Monday morning at 9 a.m. I've been awake for 45 minutes, had some coffee, and I'm ready to break this one down. But before we really get to it, if you could hit that like button for me here on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The links to the podcast audio version on Apple or Spotify are in the description as well. Any love y'all want to send, I would highly appreciate it, as always. So again, Illinois wins 87-79 at home against Ohio State. And we'll just start with reactions. We'll go with the good and the bad, and then we'll just kind of close her out with big picture and what do we, what's up next, right? So original reactions or first reactions to Illinois winning this game or just this game in general, I thought Brad Underwood answered the call. I thought the players answered the call. This game doesn't necessarily move the needle for me in terms of like, are we back or, are they this or are they that? All I know is that they needed to win this game. There was no excuse to lose this game. They had lost 2 straight home games. They lost to Maryland and they had lost to USC at home. They had lost 2 straight home games in 3 of their last 4 games. And one of those wins, the win coming out of that was against Northwestern. Obviously, it has been a tough stretch, right? So for me, coming into this game, it simply was, you better win this game. You're at home. You're too talented. I think Ohio State's coming and playing well. They had just gone to Penn State and won by 90 in Penn State's high school gym. But you're at home. You have more talent. Just win the game. And that is what they did. So that's my first reaction to winning this game, is that they just won. And it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always disgusting either. And I will say in this game, Illinois for sure was more aesthetically pleasing to watch. I think the first 10 minutes of this game, Illinois took a total of 4 3-pointers and was shooting 64% from 3. First 10 minutes. And then, of course, they went through a bit of a cold stretch that I think you can mainly say was the next 5 minutes. Was the next 5 minutes. So around the 10-minute mark going until, the under 5 minutes, somewhere in that range, they could not put the ball in the bucket. I think they probably missed 1 or 2 free throws in the process, which kind of stung. They had some bad turnovers. Illinois finished with 11 turnovers. I believe half of them at least came in the first half. I would say that it was a game of runs in the first half. They kind of went on a little bit of a run to close the first half, and then Ohio State scored 8 of the last 9 points in the final 2 minutes, I think. Paraphrasing with all of that, it was a game of runs in the first half, and I'll take it. It's better than them just being bad for an entire half, like they were against Maryland and in other games as well. You saw peaks and valleys of just how good the team can be in how bad the team can be. And I would say that at halftime, I was annoyed, but also I was annoyed, but like optimistic. And I hadn't felt very optimistic in these recent games. It was more like anxiety of like, we're really about to lose this game. And I guess in some ways I felt that too, because Illinois needed to win this game and they were trailing at halftime and they couldn't hit a three again. How many more games are we going to watch this team struggle from three? But they still almost scored 40 points in the first half. And it was largely because they were getting to the basket. They were taking advantage of getting out in transition when they can. And I thought they had some guys step up. Merez Johnson with a first half double-double. Merez Johnson had the game of his life yesterday. And then, obviously, Tommy being back was huge. Putting Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn into the starting lineup, he didn't play it. I feel like he didn't play a ton in the first half. He played 23 minutes for the game. I feel like he definitely played a majority of those minutes in the second half. I could be wrong on that, but based off memory and thinking back on how that game progressed, I feel like maybe he played a lot of the first 10 minutes, but maybe not so much the last 10 minutes of the first half. And obviously, Kasparis really struggled. So it was a feeling of, in some ways, you feel lucky to be in the spot considering Kasparis struggling. You also feel like, well, if these guys would just hit open shots like we've been saying for the last month, they'd be winning. I really didn't have any problems with Brad. I thought the way Royal was playing for Ohio State, Devin Royal, he finished with 29 points. I don't remember how many points he finished with the first half, but he was owning. How do I say this? He was as good of a first half that Merez Johnson was having. Royal was having whatever he wanted on the offensive end against him. And it was largely because I just feel like it was a mismatch. I felt like Rickhouse, actually, his value yesterday more so was from his defense against Royal. I can't believe I'm saying that. We're talking about Ben Rickhouse here. But I think it's just because he matches up better against him. Merez is, I wouldn't say he's as quick of an on-ball defender, perhaps, I guess, as Rickhouse is, considering the matchup. Royal can step out, shoot the three. He was 3 of 6 from 3. With Merez and Tommy out there, it felt like a little bit of a matchup nightmare with Royal being able to shoot the 3. That was the first half, at least. But I feel like his on-ball defense was a lot better in the second half, because at one point I was thinking, okay, is Rickhouse going to have to play a majority of the second half with Tommy or Merez on the bench, because I just didn't feel great about either one of them trying to guard Royal. And then I don't know what happened. Like I think I just want to give the credit to the players, those guys, for stepping up their defense against him. I think he missed some shots that maybe he hit in the first half. But man, like Ohio State was 11 of 23 from 3-point land. And it was just like every three they took, it felt like it was a dagger in some aspects. And in other aspects, it was just like, when are they going to miss? And I felt like in the first half, Royal hit some of those where you're like, this felt like USC all over again with AG, and the fact that he could shoot the 3. And as we know, Tommy, and especially Tommy, like, not the greatest defender if he has to go out to the perimeter, right? And same thing with Merez, I would say. But Merez, other than that, in the first half, Merez owned the half, man. First half double-double. He finished with what? 14 points and 15 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds. Merez Johnson is a dog, my friends. Merez Johnson He is a guy that entire first half, I'm sitting on the couch, and despite how annoyed I am with how things were going, I'm sitting here dreaming about what he can be next season. But hell, he's already given us a lot of signs already. But like this, to me, this arguably could have been his best game. Now, I believe he had a great game against Penn State. Didn't he have like a 20-10 game against Penn State? But Morez Johnson, man, he owned the offensive and defensive boards. Ohio State could not get this guy out of the way. And he had some big offensive rebound putbacks. He would go up strong on some of those offensive rebounds that forced him to come back down. The guy is not afraid. The guy, he is a monster, dude. Morez Johnson could be like the X factor for this Illini team if this is a turning point and going into the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten tournament, because they're the number one they're the number one rebounding team in the country. And the way they rebounded the ball yesterday, man, if you got him out there with his physicality and his ability to finish, hell, he can make some free throws for you. I mean, at least it's not like when Kofi Coburn goes to the line, right? He shot 2 of 3 from the free throw line yesterday. I'll take that, right? I was just so impressed with Morez Johnson overall in this game, but this especially in the first half, because I feel like if they don't even get half of what he does, they're probably down double digits. And he stepped up in this game, and he's becoming a real focal point of this team. And I think the hype behind this guy coming into the season, I wouldn't say it was overblown, but you just never know what to expect out of freshmen, and you don't want to put your expectations too high, and you don't want to put them too low. And to me, it was just like, can this guy defend? Can he be a rim protector? This guy's been more than that. He's been way more than that, especially yesterday, man. So I was really happy to watch Morez Johnson yesterday, and I do think he's a big part of why they won this game. Now, when we talk about the second half of this game, I felt like the run that Ohio State finished the first half, it extended into the second half, the first 5 minutes at least. I feel like they really didn't get it together until after that first TV timeout. I believe, what was it? Illinois at one point was down 11? Largest lead, yes. Ohio State's largest lead was 11. And the comeback started when gibbs-lawhorn dunked that ball off the steal. And you all know what moment I'm talking about, because it is a moment that we will be talking about at the end of the season when we recap the season and we talk about the highs and lows and the highest of highs when gibbs-lawhorn got that steal and at 6'1" took off where he took off and tomahawked that ball. It was one of the few times in the last handful of weeks where I jumped off my couch and let my entire apartment building hear my excitement about Illinois basketball. It was an incredible moment, and it was for sure the turning point in this game that ignited Illinois and not only getting back in the game, but also just injecting this energy that I feel like we've all been like craving and needing. I've read too many tweets where people are saying no one on this team cares. And I think it's lazy when people say that, because they obviously care or else they wouldn't be playing. But like, it was just a jolt of energy that the entire team needed to, I guess, kind of kickstart the second half for them finally. All I know is that was an incredible moment, and him running back on defense and then the facial expression he's giving Bruce Thornton as he comes up the court and he's slapping the hardwood. That is a crazy man. Every team needs a man like that. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, the rise. If you've listened or watched this show for the last year and a half, I've clearly been a DGL truther. I've clearly been a play this guy more guy. And yesterday it was like we all felt justified. We all felt justified about Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, even more yesterday. He's been awesome in Big Ten play, but we felt even more justified yesterday with the way he helped them complete the comeback and take the lead and win this game, but also just providing something we all have felt like he could do. And he has provided nothing but energy and just lightning rods scoring off the bench up until yesterday, where he actually started the game. Think about it. A year ago, we all thought he was going to transfer. 10 points, 2 rebounds, and a steal, and the all-important steal, right? I felt like his on-ball defense was awesome too towards the end of the game. Ohio State couldn't hit a shot at the end of the game. I felt like him and Kylan Boswell's on-ball defense played a big part in that. All I'm getting at about DGL is that the rise from last year to everything with his mom that people were talking about on social media, which was objectively stupid, to the NCAA tournament when he hit some big shots, to this season being the only guy to return, to just Big Ten play and how he was playing coming off the bench, to starting a game and having a major impact on the win. It's Michael Scott looking up at Jim after in his last episode, and the tears are flowing, like that's what it's so fun. We talk about college basketball and how guys are transferring all the time, or the one and dones and this or that, and it's very rare when you have the one or two guys that stick around for all 4 years. I'm not saying Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn is going to stick around at Illinois for all 4 years, but man, like, it's one of the few guys over the last handful of years where you're like, you really have a bigger fond for a guy like this, or Coleman Hawkins, obviously Ayo Dosunmu, Kofi Coburn, DeMonte Williams, right? Guys that have been here for multiple years. It's just, we just don't see a lot of it anymore. And when we do get to see it, it's so fun. It's one of the reasons why we love college hoops, why we all got into it probably when we were younger. And so, like, that's why I'm emphasizing this Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn stuff. Like, the rise of Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn has been so fun, man. It's been so fun. It's been so fun. So I just wanted to throw flowers at Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn. Obviously, he's got to keep this up, and he's become an integral part of how they win games. Their losses would be significantly worse if he wasn't out there. But also, they don't win this game without him. They don't win certain other games without him as well. He has been so good for them in Big Ten play. And I'm excited to see how the rest of his season goes. But he makes that dunk, and along with that, the comeback starts, and then the Will Riley show starts. Will Riley had 4 points at halftime, finishes with 24. So he had 20 second half points. 24 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. He was 9 of 12 from the free throw line. And he even hit a 3, guys. He even hit a 3. Back-to-back double-digit scoring games for Will Riley. We used to dream of times like this. It's been that long. This is the Will Riley I've been waiting for. I'm not asking him to score 20 points and a half. I'm just asking for some sort of just production that I feel like I can feel confident in getting. Back-to-back double-digit games, for Will Riley. Is this a massive development in the process? Is this are we in the process of a massive development? I can only hope. I can only hope. I'm going to look at the sky and I am going to continue to ask the good Lord to put nothing but good vibes on Will Riley moving forward, because this guy, you saw a little bit of everything from Will Riley yesterday. Getting to the free throw line, getting downhill. He didn't just take a bunch of jumpers. He kind of did it all yesterday. You saw a little bit. You saw the entire bag yesterday from Will Riley, and I felt like we just haven't seen enough of that, especially in Big Ten play. Hell, his December wasn't even that good. So the combination of Will Riley and Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn in the second half yesterday, Kylan Boswell hitting some big shots in the final 5 minutes in terms of, layups, getting the free throw line. He hit a big three in the comeback. Like, yeah, like they need that, So it was an all around good win for Illinois. They outscored Ohio State 51-37 in the second half. In the last 5 minutes of the game, they went on a 13-0 run. This game was, if you didn't watch this game, you just look at the box score. This game was significantly more close. And again, Illinois trailed by as many as 11. You saw like what this offense can do. And like, listen, they end up shooting 51% for the game, but they went through stretches in this one where it's like they can't make a shot. At one point, they were shooting 38%. So yeah, there's still a lot of concerns here in terms of consistency and like, what is this team and stuff like that. But they went to the free throw line 31 times, which means they drove to the basket a lot, right? Now they missed 8 free throws, and they would have won this game by a lot more if they just made some of their free throws. But to get to the free throw line as many times as they did, and how they did it, and the offensive flow of this game was a lot different from Nebraska, from hell, even Northwestern, and they won that game. I feel like this is the type of style of game that they need to play, because it doesn't feel like they're living and dying by the three. They shot 4 of 20 and scored 87 points. They shot 4 of 20 from 3 and scored 87 points. So overall, for this game, like I just feel like it's a good win. It is a must-win game. You won, and we'll get to my concerns. We'll get to the good and the bad here in a second. But overall, this is just a game that you needed to win, and you won, and you found a way. You went through some adversity. You answered adversity, and you won a game at home, man. And also, I felt like the Orange Crush showed up. I feel like the Orange Crush showed up. Not that I ever really cared about the drama behind the Orange Crush, but I felt like the Orange Crush showed up yesterday for a noon Sunday game. So it was a good day at the State Farm Center yesterday, and Illinois now 15-7, 7-5 in the conference. And let's we'll save what I'm about to say for the end, because we'll look big picture. But yeah, I feel cautiously optimistic going into Rutgers and Minnesota. And those are games that they better win, because they're better than both of those teams. They simply are. They're on the road, but if they play like this, I think for at least if they can play this type of offensive game against Rutgers, they can win at Rutgers. Do they need to make more threes? Yes, they absolutely do. But again, the style of game that they played in this game against Ohio State, I think it was night and day compared to Nebraska and even some of these other games that they have played. Because I feel like they just didn't rely on the three-point shot as much as we've seen. They jacked up 42 threes against Nebraska. They jacked up 20 against Ohio State. And again, scored 87 in the process. So they need to keep this up. I like this new starting lineup. And let's see if this is the turning point. Let's see. Okay. Let's go to the good and the bad. I see some of your comments here. I'm going to get to them here in a few minutes, but let's get to the good and the bad. I've kind of been talking about a lot of the good. Let's talk about some of the bad, and then I'll mention some of the good that maybe I didn't mention. So the bad. Trey White, 14 minutes, 0 points. He wasn't aggressive. He took 2 shots. All I know is that the Trey White we saw in December, in the early part of January, like they're going to need that Trey White. Now, because Will Riley dropped 24 and Kylan Boswell had 14 off the bench and Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn continues to do what he does, you can afford Trey White giving you a no-show. But if I'm going to sit here and talk about how the three-point shooting needs to be better, he's kind of like part of that. Now, he didn't take any threes yesterday, but he has not shot the 3 ball well this year. And I just understand what his role is at this point. He is a guy, one of the few guys who can score in isolation. He can get to the basket. He is a good free throw shooter. I need him to not give us a no-show. Like, this was objectively a no-show, in my opinion. Maybe his defense was better than what I'm thinking, but if he's going to start games, he's got to give you more than what he did yesterday. I'm not going to be too hard on him because I do think that he has found his role on this team, but you just can't have 0 points from a guy who's in your starting lineup. That's just me. All right. Kasparis. I don't really know what to say about Kasparis. He had 4 turnovers, so the turnover problem continues. Some of the turnovers were just objectively bad. He had a travel on a drive to the basket. Very beginning of the game, he tried to throw a lob that ended up being ruled a turnover. This is like the first time where I'm going to objectively sit here and say that Kasparis had a really bad game. And I think you can make the argument that he's had some bad games recently because he has been a turnover machine. And if we all know that Illinois' ceiling, Illinois' potential to go deep in March is all based on this guy. This guy is going to be the reason that this team goes to the Elite 8 or the Sweet 16. And if you really want me to dream, a Final Four, right? You saw today that this team found a way to win without him being that good. And hell, there were points in this game where I felt like Illinois played better with him on the bench. But he went 4 of 8 from the free throw line, and he's like a 90% free throw shooter. 0 of 5 from 3. And I believe every single one of those threes, maybe just one of them, wasn't a step back 3 in like an isolation type form. I felt like he started the game well. His first 2 shots were layups at the basket. I thought that maybe that was going to get him going. And then when they hit that dry spell, he was taking jumpers. He was shooting step back 3s. I don't know if the forearm is not fully there. You know, he's still wearing the sleeve or whatever for it. But yesterday was objectively, in my opinion, his worst game. And what's great is that they still won. 8 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, and 4 turnovers. any other player gives you that outside of the turnovers, you're probably like, oh, yeah, it was a good game for that guy. I guess my standards are significantly higher for Kasparis. Maybe that's unfair because he's 18 years old, but this guy is also being projected to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft in June. So, again, we all know what Kasparis needs to be for them to be as good as we hope they can be, right? I expect him to be better moving forward. And at some point, this guy's got to stop turning the ball over. So, and also make your free throws, dude. 2 of 8 from the field. I don't know. But I will say that, again, they're not going to win anything significant without him. They also need him to be better than yesterday. So those are my 2 bads for sure, probably. The good that I haven't mentioned. Ben Humrickhouse off the bench. He only scored 5 points. He was 1 of 3 from 3 boards, 1 assist, a block, and a steal. Again, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I felt like he guarded Royal as well as he could have and played an integral part in slowing him down as the game went on. So I do like what he gave them off the bench yesterday. 17 minutes. I thought the 1-3 he hit was at a big moment because it was a time when Illinois was kind of reeling a little bit, and he hit that 3 to kind of get us off, or get us rolling a little bit, right? So I'm interested to see how Brad Underwood goes forward with these lineups, but you look at the stat sheet for Ben Humrickhouse and you're like, it's fine off the bench, I guess. Sure. Would be nice if he hit all his threes. But the 2 shots, he hit that 3, and I think the other one was doing booty ball. And they put him in some situations where he was the bigger guy, and it makes you appreciate what you saw from Marcus Domask last year because he was just so efficient doing it. And Ben, sometimes it just feels like he's not taking advantage of the size that he has on certain guys. And you can tell I don't want to say the talent difference, but just like he's no Marcus Domask. He just isn't. And that's fine. I didn't really know what to expect from him this year, but shit, like they definitely need, if he's going to come off the bench, they needed what they got from him yesterday. I'd ask for a little bit more. I've said all year, this guy needs to give you 7 to 10 points per game. He needs to hit a couple threes. That way that keeps the spacing on offense. But I will give him credit for this game, mostly for his defense. And I felt justified when I heard Brad Underwood say that his defense on Royal in the first half was huge. So I was like, okay, I know ball. Okay. So that's one good. The other good, I kind of mentioned it, but not really. Kylan Boswell, he answered the call. He's one of the older guys on this team now. Whenever he's still only like 19 years old, but he has some of the most experience on this team after his 2 years in Arizona, and I believe he started every game at Arizona. I could be wrong about that, but for him to come to Illinois and start every game up until yesterday, a lot of guys would have let that hurt their ego. And could have floundered. I felt like Kylan Boswell answered the call yesterday. I know a lot of people have been dogging him. I've only really dogged him lately because of turnovers. I do think his 3-point shooting needs to be better. But he was 5 of 8 from the field, 14 points, and 2 rebounds. He only had 2 turnovers yesterday as well. I felt like it was his best game in a while. And they need this from Kylan. I don't know if he's going to be coming off the bench the rest of the season. I don't know if that's the right move. Whatever it is, they need more of this from Kylan Boswell, whether it's off the bench or in a starting role. He can't turn the ball over like he has been up until yesterday. He gave them really good minutes yesterday, and I thought he hit some big shots down the stretch. And again, the one thing that he has been consistent with all season for sure has been the on-ball defense of other players. And so I thought that has been the one consistent thing you can look at him and say. But I just feel like that was probably his best game in quite a while. If he can start hitting more threes, again, the 1-3 he hit yesterday was at a big moment. If that outside game can show up for him finally, that like what we saw from him at Arizona, like it's a game changer for this team. But he's been getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line, and getting other guys involved. And I think that there's plenty of value in that. Okay. Let's go to the comments, and then we'll do big picture. Jay, welcome back, my man. Have to give props to the team of the second half performance, fought adversity after being down 11 with 15 minutes left. Liked how they finally took it to the bucket in that stretch. Yeah, it's kind of what I was saying. I do feel like for the entire game, they did take the ball to the basket more often than not. And that's why they went to the free throw line 31 times. But yeah, they would go through little stretches where they would get a little jumper happy, and whether it was a timeout or I don't know, maybe substitutions come in and something just clicked. Whatever it is, obviously this game wasn't perfect, and this wasn't something that is going to change my mind on this team big picture right now. But again, they got to free throw line 31 times. And to me, that shows how much they were trying to get into the paint. So, but yes, to your point, at that 15-minute mark in the second half, like it was huge for them to do what they did. Jay also says KJ didn't look right yesterday. Have to applaud Brad for making changes in the lineup and players' minutes. Huge game for Riley. Was Royal on the scouting report? He had a ton of wide open looks. Yeah, so. Yeah, I don't know about KJ right now. We'll see how he does against Rutgers and just these upcoming games. I don't know if it's the forearm. The shooting hasn't necessarily been there. And the turnovers have been a problem, right? But yes, to your point, have to applaud Brad for making changes in the lineup and players' minutes. And listen, KJ there were important minutes down the stretch. KJ wasn't out there. They were actually playing better without him. And we can sit here and criticize Brad a ton about, in-game adjustments and things he says in post-game sometimes and this and that. But I felt like he answered the call yesterday. For all our criticism, at least. Also, Jay, having Tommy back is massive. Probably their second best three-point shooter, their second best passer, one of their top defenders. Hopefully they can get back on track over the next couple weeks. Now, I haven't talked about Tommy a lot, but I do think his presence yesterday was significant. You can tell the difference in how this team plays with him out there. And while I've said over the stretch that, his injury isn't necessarily a good excuse for me, especially isn't it? It especially isn't a good excuse losing to Nebraska. But when the team is whole, you can see just how good they are. What my concern is when a guy gets hurt and everything goes to shit, why is that happening with all this talent? And I think that's objectively a good question, because it shouldn't be that way with all this talent. So I thought Brad also gave a good perspective on this in postgame yesterday, using Terrence Shannon's situation as a point. Not when Terrence Shannon was out, but when Terrence Shannon came back. If you remember, Illinois didn't exactly play incredible for the next couple games with him. It took some time for them to get back into form. Yesterday, you saw them entering Tommy back in the lineup, and it was almost like everything kind of clicked again, outside the fact that they still can't hit any threes. But I think that perhaps maybe the threes will come with him back in the lineup and this whole team at full strength. Maybe. But I think it's a good point by Brad in postgame yesterday saying, the team wasn't exactly incredible when Terrence Shannon came back last year. To see what they did with Tommy back yesterday in his first game in, a week or two is significant. Jason Long, welcome back, man. Let's freaking go. DGL and Merez energy is amazing. Hell yeah, man. Dude, DGL and Merez Johnson on this team next season, it's going to be so fun. You know what I'm looking forward to? If DGL keeps this up, I can't wait for Purdue to come to State Farm. I believe Purdue comes to State Farm this year. It's been so fun. Like I said at the beginning of the show, like Merez Johnson, DGL, like they're dogs, dude. They're dogs. Jay, DGL dunk was crazy. A 6-foot dude who can sky dunk is one of the most exciting things in basketball. Yeah, just that tomahawk, dude. The electricity at State Farm Center at that moment. God, we all needed something like that. I'll stand on that. Jason, hate Underwood haters, love to shut them up. Daddy Brad is here and not going anywhere. You're absolutely right, Jason. You're absolutely right. But hey, I understand criticism. I understand frustration. And like I said in the last episode, Brad has done so much good here that he's raised the standard at Illinois. So I understand why people get mad at times. I understand why people go off the deep end or like fire him into the sun and all this and that. But big picture, a good coach gets his team up to play a game like they did yesterday after what has transpired. Now, should they go to Nebraska and lose the way they did? No. And I think Brad deserves a lot of blame for that. For sure. He's not perfect, but he also had his team ready to play in a must-win game. Now, can they get going? Can they switch into that next gear in this month of February where you have some tough games? You get to play Michigan State again. You have Duke at the end of the month, right? Like they need to win these next two games and beat UCLA and beat Michigan State, right? Like those two games, that week is going to be a wild ride for us Illini fans. That's why they need to win these next two. If you win these next two, and I'll optimistically say perhaps they can win both UCLA and Michigan State, maybe. I actually feel worse about the UCLA game than I do Michigan State because UCLA is playing great ball right now. But those are going to be tough games. We'll see what they do, but they need to win these next two and take a lot of momentum into Kofi coming back and Terrence Shannon Day at the State Farm Center. And if you win both of those and you go to Madison Square Garden and play Duke, you'll get me dreaming again. All right. So, yeah, that's those are all the comments we got so far. Drop a comment and I'll try and read it before the end of the show. We're about 43 minutes in, so I need to get to big picture here. Big picture and around the conference. Let's talk about around the conference here. Michigan State lost to UCLA on Saturday, right? Oregon lost to Nebraska last night. All I know is that when you look at these standings right now, Illinois is 3 games back. They're 7-5 in the Big Ten. They're behind Wisconsin, UCLA, Maryland, Michigan, Purdue, and Michigan State. Michigan State 9-1 in conference now. Now, I don't really have a lot of hope for the Big Ten anymore, as I've said. Losing to USC, losing to Nebraska are tough. If you win those games, you're 9-3. You're 9-3 in conference if you win the 2 games that you're supposed to win. But the teams ahead of them, Wisconsin is the only team that they've beat. Now, they haven't played Michigan State, or they haven't played Purdue yet. They haven't played Michigan, and they haven't played UCLA. I think what I'm getting at here is that for as mad as I was and still am about losing to USC, Michigan State had won 13 in a row and went out to Southern California. And I watched the second half of that game. Like they looked terrible against USC. So I think what I've learned in these last handful of days, and this is something I have to remind myself a lot, is that like losing to one team or the other, no matter how bad a loss as it is to Nebraska and USC, those same teams can go out and beat any of the other teams. And as we've talked about, the Big Ten this year, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's certainly more of a level playing field. Like last year, it was Purdue in Illinois, right? Last year it was Purdue in Illinois, and then the rest. I feel like it's more level playing field this year. I really do. Michigan, for as good as they've been, they definitely were exposed against Purdue, but also Purdue almost lost to Indiana on their home floor the other night, right? That's my point. I'm not saying Purdue isn't Purdue, but they're not the same Purdue team with Zach Edey. TKR is pretty solid. Braden Smith, arguably the best point guard in the country. But I feel like Illinois can compete with that team. So I'm not saying they're going to come back and win the Big Ten. I'm just saying that I think it's sometimes or at some point we just have to acknowledge that some of these teams in conference might just be better than we all think, and some of the teams that we've beat might not be as good as we think. Oregon lost to Nebraska last night at home. And, they're ranked. When Illinois beat them, they're a top 10 team in the country. They also got pounded by UCLA the game before that. Maybe Oregon just isn't as good as we all thought. I don't know. I'm not saying, but I'm asking the question. So at this point, for me, I'm just looking one game at a time, just win. That's where I'm at. Just win. One game at a time, just win. And I know they're not going to win them all, but I think I'm done for a while criticizing them for losing to whoever. Now, if they do lose to Rutgers and they lose to Minnesota, those are bad. Those are objectively bad losses. Objectively. Rutgers has been a massive disappointment. They have all that NBA talent on their team, and they're objectively bad, right? In Minnesota, then they just lost over the weekend to they lost to a non-conference opponent over the weekend on Saturday. I can't remember who they lost to. But I'm not saying it's an excuse for them to lose those two games, but I am saying that this conference is a more of a level playing field than maybe some of us have thought. That's all I'm saying. All right. Big picture. Looking at big picture right now. As I've said, you got Rutgers and Minnesota. It is the beginning of February, first show in February. So they're 1-0 in February. We're undefeated in February. You have Rutgers, Minnesota, UCLA, Michigan State, at Wisconsin. You have Duke on a neutral court, and then you host Iowa. So you have 8 games in February. You're 1-0 in February. Last month I asked for 6-3. They went 5-4. So of the 7 games left in February, I will ask. We'll just go through it. They should win at Rutgers. They should win at Minnesota. That's 3 wins in February. UCLA will be tough, but you're at home. I think they win that game. Michigan State at home after what happened in East Lansing. Give me Illinois. Go to Wisconsin. Going to be a tough game, but Wisconsin has lost. 12 straight to Illinois, Brad Underwood? And I just don't think they're that good. I think you go to Wisconsin and win. They've played well on the road this year outside of Nebraska. Give me Illinois beating Wisconsin. That's
That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 games in a row that I have them winning going into Duke on a neutral court. Duke is really good. Duke is a team that right now I don't know if Illinois can beat. So I'll put a loss for that one. But I feel like Illinois could hang around against them. We'll see. And then you have Iowa at home to end the month. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-1 the rest of the month. So a 7-1 month if I count the game that was already played yesterday. 6-1 the rest of the way. Can they go 6-1 through February? I think they can. I think they absolutely can. If they play like they did it for a majority of the second half yesterday, I think they can go 6. They can go 6-1 the rest of the month. That's my optimistic outlook. Now, we know this team is Jekyll and Hyde at times, right? So could they lose one of these next 2 games? They absolutely could. And it'd probably be at Rutgers because it's tough to win at Rutgers, right? So say they split next week. So that's 1-1. I think Kofi Cockburn coming home against UCLA, they're going to win that one. And I do think that they're going to beat Michigan State this time at home after what the refs did in East Lansing. So that's 3-1. I really don't feel great about going up against Duke. So that's 3-2. And then rivalry game at home. Iowa sucks in my opinion. Well, they don't suck, but Illinois is better than them. You'll be at home. So 4-2. I think a realistic view is a 4-2 the rest of the month. So a 5-2 month if you count yesterday's game against Ohio State. So 5-2 in February. That is my realistic outlook moving forward here in February. But my Delulu, my optimism says 7-1. But yeah, Jay says in the chat he'd take a 5-2 month. We'll see. It's one game. And I'm trying not to get too high about it. But I felt like yesterday was a turning point. I did not feel like beating Northwestern was a turning point, even though that was a blowout. I felt like yesterday was a turning point of the season. We'll see. We'll see if I'm right about that or not. And if I'm wrong about it, I'm sure you all will let me know. All right. For the folks who have been here this entire hour almost, I appreciate y'all. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. Tell a friend if they're looking for a new Illini podcast. There's a lot of good ones out there. The fact that I just sat here for 52 minutes and talked to myself in front of my MacBook Air is impressive, to be honest with you. But there was a lot to take away from yesterday's game, I felt like, and I wanted to talk it all out. And now I feel even more delusional about this team moving forward. I don't know if that's good or bad, but as I say a lot, I'm ready to be hurt again. Okay, so Illinois and Rutgers on Wednesday at Rutgers. Interested to see all this talent come together and play. And Rutgers coming off a loss at home to Michigan. They were in that game. I think Illinois is better than Michigan. So I expect Illinois to go to Rutgers and win. So I'm predicting a W at Piscataway, New Jersey. We'll make it 2 straight going into this coming weekend against Minnesota. So, again, hit that like button for me. And as I always promote on here, I do go live on TikTok every night, normally talking Cubs, but also Illinois. We get a lot of Illini fans who come and hang out in my TikTok lives every night. So if you want to talk more Illini hoops with me, feel free to go follow me on TikTok. Same handle as here on YouTube, and join the conversation. So a lot of fun doing this stuff, and I appreciate y'all's support. I will see y'all on Wednesday. Optimistically hoping that I can do post-game Wednesday after the game. Optimistically hoping. The Cubs have been running my entire offseason because they're so active, and Pacoda put them at 90 wins this morning. I have so much to talk about today about my actual full-time job. So the point that I'm getting at here, though, is that they have kept me very busy, busier than the last couple off seasons. So I'm trying my best to be here with y'all and ride this Illini season. I'm going to continue to do the best I can. So I appreciate y'all's support. I will see you all hopefully on Wednesday. If not Wednesday, Thursday. All right. Y'all stay good. Have a good week. And as always, ILL.